big expense because you tee off of your existing service closer to your building and then connect to your potable water. So we're not saying that you can't connect up and you can't connect
Who
up
owns it? Who owns that 10-inch line in front of Polly's?
in the street.
Yeah,
The
whose is
town.
that?
Town of Plastow.
What's the holdup?
School district owns the
So
building.
Well, there's no water there yet.
Oh, I thought it said it
The
was
water,
existing
the
line
potable
there.
water's in
There is an
Manchester.
existing line, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
It's not here.
Oh, okay.
It's
When I'm
dirty
reading-
pond water.
I'm
that's
reading
in-
this plan, it says existing line.
It is existing.
It is.
It's an existing line, but it's fire suppression.
It's,
It's
Oh.
not good water.
I'm
it's
sorry.
fire
I got you.
out water.
I got you.
Pond water.
Oh, okay.
Pond water.
Never, oh, okay. I'm thinking to myself, what
All right,
is
so,
this?
so get the state to do some free testing at Pollard.
Pond water, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
get the state to accept and do some free testing at the water at Pollard, the water at the high school, the water at the PAC, and see if that we possibly have some contaminants that would qualify us to get a free hookup. Yes?
Yes.
Am I with you?
Absolutely. And the state has indicated to us, they haven't started it yet, but they're gonna come into town to do more additional testing, looking for more sites. But primarily, they're gonna look where the existing water lines are.
Oh.
So you're not on the existing water line, this facility. So what he's telling you is that cost you might have to pick up on your
Right.
own, unless the state says, sure, we'll come in and we'll do it.
Right, but definitely Pollard.
Is it more,
Yes, they will test power.
is it more likely or less likely that those contaminants exist and we're in good shape?
I do not know the odds. I would say that the likelihood is that Pollard has already been tested, and that it came up clean. And I say that because I don't believe there's anything really turned up.
On Main Street, right.
Nothing on Main Street.
Right. Now, as for your high school, I would have thought they tested that as well. There are some contaminated properties near you. They're on Plastow Road and further down.
Just down the
There's not a
road.
lot, and you may, probably not. So I would say, if I were to say that, the odds, it's less than 50/50 that this is gonna be fair.
So for planning purposes,
Sooner than not, I think at this point, we're getting tested
I
out
agree.
of due diligence.
So I've got a question for all of you. I heard, and, I'm not from this area, but I heard, somebody told me that the site where your high school and your middle school is now, your campus, that may have been constructed on some type of a landfill?
Yes.
From a
Yeah.
long time ago?
Yes, an old dump.
Okay, so I would just say to you that might warrant you to start doing some testing, and if you find a PFAS or PFOS or any of the PFs, because that may end up being a hook for you to pull in, for the state to come in and say, okay, we're gonna qualify this.
Well, and because we are in between the Beatty site and
Yep.
all those contaminated properties from, the Lido site,
Yep.
we're right in the middle there. Don't tell me,
Isn't it strange though?
is it strange that we're in the center?
No, we're right in the middle, and we've been okay thus far. So.
Well, because it's just the way the water, the water goes.
TVs are tricky.
But it doesn't mean that tomorrow the water doesn't change, right, Mark? As we've seen in a
Well,
lot of our
What Gene
properties.
said at the beginning was, the standards are under review right now,
Right.
and New Hampshire has dropped that standard lower than the federal standard. And that's the court case. But we think that ultimately, New Hampshire standards are gonna be lower than the federal.
Right.
And by them doing that, we don't know what properties that's gonna involve. I mean, there's a lot of people that haven't even tested their water to know if they have it,
Right.
and you may be one of them.
We're a public water supply, so we do penetrate this and take all of our testing, but it's mostly. required.
Yeah, it's like.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. So as a
Arsenic.
as a public water supply, though, they don't have to test for those?
I don't know. I've never seen any results from that. When I was looking at bills and stuff, there's arsenic testing and copper, and, the copper will get too high and they have to do such and such, and
Yeah, we test for lead.
lead.
There are standard contaminants that you do test on a regular basis. PFCs, and I use that as a broad category
Yep.
of polychlorinated compounds that include PFAS and others that we've read about, are not regulated to the point where they are required testing.
They're not required testing.
They have been tested through a emerging contaminant that does require some shotgun statistical work that's done. That has been the cause of why it's been found in other places. So there have been tests done. These are more expensive tests. They run $300 to $400. Again, I would echo what Mark is saying. It'd be very prudent to make sure you have test results on those if you don't already.
Yeah, I always thought, I'm on my own private well, so I do my own testing, but I always thought that a public water supply had to test for the PFCs and the VOCs and all of that anyway, but they don't, huh?
They don't have to test for a whole lot of things that are out there. There's so many different chemicals, and so EPA does have requirements
It's a
for.
false sense of security for people on public
So by the way,
water.
which water am I about to drink here? Where's this coming from, your well?
Poland Springs.
It's Poland Spring, okay, thank you.
We only serve Evian here.
You know, I know that, I'm not sure if the laws that have recently been passed actually have now required New Hampshire public water supplies over a certain size to test it. I know that there was a voluntarily, there was a request for, many communities to do this on a voluntary basis. And, that's why there is so much of a database already being developed about PFAS that basically was done voluntarily in a lot of areas, as was, MTV some years ago.
So for planning purposes, in terms of costs, and you mentioned some of these tests are $200 and $300 and $400, like, what kind of money do you think should we be thinking about that are additional in terms of testing, so to plan, to find out the answers to the questions you're asking?
I think it's minimal. Like I said, I think the state DES will pick up MTB testing. They may for a school, well, I shouldn't speak for them. I don't think they would for a school pick up the PFC testing. So if you figured, $400 a test, and you've got really 2 well locations that you might want to test, that's a minimal amount for the water quality testing.
So a couple $1,000, I mean,
It's
makes,
more than that.
And so, would we need multiple tests of the same wells, like, or is it one test and you get you get your evidence, or do you?
It's one test,
Oh.
and you'll get a report out on what PFC compounds are there, and that will inform you. You may want to do it twice a year, if you really want to be sure. I think that it's prudent because the fluorinated compounds that are a concern here, they're very ubiquitous. At some level, they're just about everywhere. And we're talking parts per trillion. And so you're very likely to find some now, and whether you're at 7 or 17, is kind of the sort of thing that can change in the quality of your well over season, over a year. And the 17 would be out of the current standards, but the 7 would not. So
Is there a time that's the best time to test, like seasonally?
I would say no, because every well is different. I don't know if these are bedrock wells or if they're shallow aquifers or deep aquifers, whether, the hydrology of the wells,
Shallow.
I have no idea about. We'd be happy to look at what you've got, but it would answer the questions that were raised earlier about how you can be surrounded by contamination up here, contamination down here. You could be pulling from a very different aquifer
Right.
level that is very isolated from those contaminants
at this point.
at this
Thank you,
point.
yeah.
I do have a little bit of information, and what records are the information that I have is that this entire campus is served by one well, again, in between the high school parking lot and this campus, or this building, the baseball field, and that the well is about 210 feet deep.
210.
210.
So that's, I would consider that a shallow well, right?
No, that's a
Jane?
bedrock well.
Oh, that's a
It's
bedrock.
well, yeah.
Okay, so a bedrock well,
Bedrocks.
one well that does the campus, that's the drinking water, and obviously not irrigation and. Okay,
And
Just
the
living on a dream.
Pollard School has a line already running in for
Right.
fire
Right.
suppression from the street.
right,
So
ready
it's
to
a
go.
matter of If that was reconfiguring and decommissioning what we have on the woods.
So even if you had no support from the state, the Pollard School would be an easy hookup. It would not cost, anywhere near the amounts of Timberline.
Yeah.
Now, there is another factor, and Mark, please speak up if I'm
I
out
was
of-
gonna get to it if you didn't.
out of line here, but it's a policy decision that still needs to be resolved by the Board of Selectmen in Plastow. And that is how to deal with the capacity. It's not just the physical connection, it's the rights to the water that are an issue here. As part of this project, the state has purchased on behalf of the town of Plastow, 100,000 gallons of capacity.
A day.
100,000 gallons a day capacity. Now, that 100,000 gallons is purchased for the purpose of getting these MTB contaminated sites. So the policy issues are, well, right now at least, we might see the number grow with more testing, but right now, it would seem that there's going to be significant capacity left over that the town will then set a policy regarding how that capacity is made available to other customers.
Yeah.
That may be something that is either free or low cost to qualifying, entities. It might be time related. If you sign up sooner, you might get a lower rate, or it might be relating to nonprofits, or it might relate to low income. They could do anything policy-wise, and those discussions are just really getting started.
And that's at the Board of Selectmen level?
That will be at the Board of Selectmen level,
Too bad
to
we
set
don't know any Board of
policy about what to happen with capacity. And now, capacity, ultimately, beyond the 100,000 gallons, needs to be purchased, and again, there are timeframes for this, from the Manchester Waterworks. They have what's called the Merrimack Area, MDC, Merrimack Development, Capacity Development Charge. And that is basically set, and it escalates every year, and it's set in contract with the town of Plastow, where they would pay the in-town rate for Manchester Waterworks. And there are certain volumes that are available and need to be purchased within certain timeframes. There's a phase one that will give the town the right to purchase another 250,000, I think it's 250,000 gallons of capacity initially, and then there's phase two that will bring the total capacity up to 550,000 gallons per
So
day.
can I interrupt you and just give you layman's terms? So the goal with, we have approximately 61 MTBE properties that, as he says, the project that is the reason why they're going to help us bring potable water to town, but it doesn't work just for 61. What they have established is that what we need is a volume of 400 users to actually make it work for the 61, so that there's some circulation and the water's not stagnant. So it doesn't work just by servicing 61. So what they did is they purchased a capacity that would cover not only the 61, but the 400 users, that's that 100,000 gallons a day. So what he's saying is that the board has not made a policy yet on the first people to sign up, but it's quite possible that they may incentivize the first people to sign up where they don't have to pay for a capacity charge because
good.
it's already pre-purchased. So I'm leading them in the direction of thinking about incentivize the first 400 users.
Because you have to have 400
Because,
to make it work.
right, so it doesn't make sense, let's charge the first 400 people. We're more like, please come and join us and become a water user. And we'll give you an incentive, and this is my theory, and I brought it to the board's attention, and I'm inclined to believe they'll probably follow that. And then subsequent to the 400 users or the 100,000, then you say, well, you have to purchase the capacity now because we don't have the capacity. So we've got to charge you the charge for more water, and that's the water that you're planning on using into the future.
So we're better at Pollard, let's isolate
Right,
ourselves
right, because
there.
you're one of the people that can jump on as one of the
As one of
400 users. Okay.
And get that incentive.
Right.
And be in the books early and get
Right,
a lower
right.
cost.
So what he didn't, I thought you
For
were going to bring
free.
up about the fire suppression system.
Well, I still have more to go. but-
Okay, well, I'm going to just jump ahead. So you're not out of the woods yet, let's talk about Pollard. So your system, your fire suppression system at Pollard was installed to work off of the current PSI in the street, which is 150 PSI. When the potable water system comes in, that's going to be reduced down almost in half, to say 75, 80. That means that your current fire suppression system in that building might need some help to make it work as it's currently designed, because water needs to be pushed up to the higher levels, and you might need a pump. What does that mean? You might have to spend some money for a pump, and it might cost you some money, or you would reconfigure your current sprinkler system like you have here in the ceilings, so that it would just operate at a lower pressure. So there is a cost that would happen. Going back to the water connection, if the line's already run in the building, which we know it is, it would simply be a deed access to the town for a shut-off for that connection, so that we could go in and shut your water off if you didn't pay your bill. We're just talking generically speaking, that's not what we're gonna do, but I mean, that's what you do. So if you don't pay your bill, yeah, so if you don't pay your bill, we have access to it. But, that connection is very close to your building, so you're not talking about excavating your driveway up, because you've already got access to the water, it's just branching off of it and then feeding your plumbing inside. So I'm just trying to provide some clarity along the
Sure.
way, so that you start understanding what we're dealing with.
But, can I ask a
Sure.
question? So you need 400 more users. This is an awful big campus.
Right.
I was just gonna get to
Right,
that.
So
right.
how many
Right.
users would
Well,
we be over here?
that's gonna be what Gene's gonna do, is he's
No, I
gonna
realize
figure
that,
out, he doesn't have all the data to figure out, but he's gonna figure out what you use for
Right.
your buildings,
Right.
and then break that down
Because it
into.
doesn't seem to me that we'd be one user.
No,
We're not
you,
one
you would be
house.
equivalent, you know how you figure
what
out
I'm saying? That's
full-time
why I'm like-
equivalent employees? Go ahead, Gene, you could take it from
I was
here.
gonna say, even the 61, we're well, close to 200 now, by our count, in terms of equivalent household.
Okay.
Okay.
At Timberlane?
No,
No, just already,
61.
In town.
Oh,
In
okay.
town, no, 61, some of them are multifamily, some of them are businesses. some
Businesses.
are-
We have,
You only have
we have
one well,
one
okay.
complex that has multiple buildings, and it's counted as one, but they have
Yeah.
61 units, so
Sure.
that's not just one user,
that's.
it's not full 61.
Out of the
That's
400,
that's
you're
what I
already
was
halfway
saying
there.
here.
We might be
I think
halfway there.
you might be
Your
halfway there.
campus here, I understand, is around, using around 16,000 gallons a day. That's about 100 users.
Ah,
well?
But-
really?
But we're not a good type of user because of the seasonality of our business.
That's right.
We
But
did that out of
still-
one well?
but
That's
still
pretty
that
impressive.
Capacity charge and all that gets factored into the whole.
But if the 16,000 is what, the figure that is given to Gene, but then he does more research and finds out, well, now we have to subtract out the irrigation, because if you split the irrigation off, that's not a real number that's being used for
Right.
people.
Right.
So now you might be down to 8,000. Now you have to figure out, what does that 8,000 gallons a day represent as it
in
compares to a
users.
house?
Right.
Is our irrigation, is that from that same well?
Oh, it's from the pond.
But I think the numbers you gave for 16,000, I don't think 16,000 is an accurate number for people, do you?
Yeah, actually,
do?
they've got the campus, we were just talking about that before.
It's a
you came
big
in.
Because our
Campus.
irrigation
Close to
isn't on
2,000
that
people
well.
here every day.
Okay.
One of the questions I do have is regards to ownership rights of said pipe. If, for example, if Timberlane was to engage and we couldn't get it through state means and so forth, we had to come up and pay for the expansion of this. Who retains the ownership of that? And then as subsequent people would, as over time, people add on capacity. I've seen in projects where, they have a connection fee and, that would be used for, in the case if we paid for that,
Right.
to offset the cost of that in the future. So how's that work?
Right, I'm glad you brought it up. I wish I had a good answer for you, but I will tell you what happens here. This is something that is usually defined in a water ordinance. Just like the capacity policy decision, we have engaged a conversation with the selectmen to start developing that ordinance. Generally speaking, as you point out, most communities will insist through their water ordinances that lines that are run into the street are turned over to them, just like the street itself is turned over in a development to the town and is built to certain standards. And whether they're going to go adopting these policies, I don't know. We're talking about them. The policy of connection charges and being able to effectively take the development of that line and offset it by future connections, whether it's at the time the line's being installed, or 10 years later, there may be a property where they want to connect to a line that you built. So you should get some reimbursement for that in concept. And that's very commonly addressed in the sewer, or the water ordinances. And we're just really getting into those conversations now about how that will be worded, and the policies that will be set.
Okay, thank you.
So we're gonna have, your firm being able to take a look at and look at the three options. Danville Road, East Road, and Overland, right? And maybe come up with, what the best option would be and some pricing. In the meantime, I suspect that we'll have some results on our water testing and see if any state support might go along with that. When I look at where we're
So
at.
could you say those roads again? Which roads?
Danville Road,
Danforth, yep.
near Cumberland Farms,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, comes off Cumberland
Yeah.
Farms.
East Road, the connection's at Bryant Woods.
Yeah.
Or Overland is not, it's just through backyards, basically, to get here.
Getting
Cross-country.
cross-country.
Sorry.
I've never heard of
Actually,
Overland.
Underland.
I've
Underland
never heard of
cross-country.
It's not a
Overland.
street.
So,
And the Pollard School thing.
The Pollard School,
It isn't just this campus.
Pollard's a very
But
relatively
Pollard's-
easy.
Yeah, that's nothing, that's nothing.
Let's get that testing done.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
all
nothing,
three, everything will get tested.
Yeah.
We'll be defining what you need to do with Pollard. too.
Okay.
I've got those down as action items, and I'll get that. Now, all of that said, I'm looking at our budget cycle, and, the budget year that we're planning for right now is through June 30th, 2021. You're talking about being online, potentially December 2021, let's say.
Right.
So,
Next year's budget.
well, and that's what I'm wondering. I don't know where we would be on that, or how long it would take to construct that, or if you would need us as a user as part of that entire online process, all that time when you would go online. When would we, if we were to be putting pipes in at some point to get to this campus, when would we be needing to look at doing that reasonably?
Well, I would answer that, and I hope Mark will correct me if I'm overstepping my thoughts here a bit. But I think that it's very likely that the selectmen will be incentivizing those who commit early. So there's a difference between commitment to the water main and actual construction of the water main. I think there's likely to be a financial incentive to commit to constructing the water main early and securing that capacity, if you will. As far as when you connect, these are really just a no sooner than kind of date. Afterwards, you could connect 5 years from now if you
Sure.
wanted to.
Sure.
But I think there's the commitment for the capacity that is part of this discussion, and then there's itself, just don't build the line, have it sit there for
The
2021.
question is, because of the timeline of our budgeting cycle, is that something that we should be looking at for this?
Budget or
But this-
next year budget?
Expiring June 30th, 2020.
I think it would be helpful for you to consider that. We're proposing a technical memo report to you, I think by the end of January. I don't know if that fits your time schedule.
Pretty close.
Pretty
But-
close.
but what
Really, really close.
What we can do is, again, try to get you information as soon as we can. But I think that if you want to be in position to take advantage of potential incentives, if you want to be in a position to hook up as soon as possible because of some, driver that might include water quality issues or whatever, you can't really connect. I wouldn't count on being able to connect, probably, most likely until the spring of 2022.
22?
Yeah, or-
Spring of 22, so it's 3 budget seasons only, because our budget season's so different than
But the
towns.
fall of 2020 might be possible, I just don't want to commit to it at this point.
3 budget years, but it's not this budget cycle, it's the one
Right.
after that.
Right,
Your budget, I'm looking at.
right, right.
And keep in mind that the actual process for doing a project of this size and capacity
What they put in the-
would require
Yeah.
some engineering to be done. You would want to be able to bid this project to a contractor, get the
Right.
lowest bid.
Right.
The construction itself, the engineering, the whole thing, it might be constructed in 3 months, but you're gonna be, 2 months just through the procurement process, and and probably more like 6 months through the design process.
Gene, can I give him a little bit of a reference point? Can you just tell me what the bid came in per lineal foot in Derry and in the other parts of the lines, what the most recent number was?
Well,
Per lineal foot.
yeah, it's been running about $250 a linear foot.
Okay, and how many
But
lineal
those are
feet?
large pipes.
What's the biggest distance for lineal footage of the three options? Is it,
I'm not sure because I don't know the real endpoint, but it's close to 4,000 feet going the longest way.
okay, well then, I know, I don't even need my calculator for that. That's $1 million.
Right.
Okay, so I wanted to just let you know the magnitude of what this scope could be, and that would, the 250 would include the engineering and the fire hydrants every 600 feet and things like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't want to scare you with a big number either, because part of the big
not a big
problem
number to us.
with the dairy main lines, they're big transmission lines. We've got 16-inch line, 12-inch lines,
Right.
there are some 24-inch lines going in. The other big thing, if you've driven up and down Route 28 lately and watching that construction, you see there's a lot of ledge blasting,
Yeah,
and,
we should
you
know
know, part of the problem of estimating a project at the conceptual level is really understanding how much rock is going to be involved. That adds costs, significant costs. This is not a state road, it's not like Route 28. That's going to work in your behalf. If the geotechnical conditions work in your behalf, I would say, you know, you'd be quite a bit less than the $250.
We've seen some projects come in around 175 a lineal foot when they bid it. So now, you know, so if I give you that range, I don't know what 175 times the 4, so that quick math is about, what, 700,000. So you're talking
700 to $1 million.
yeah, 700 to $1 million. I just wanted to throw that out there so that you kind of understand what the limits are. Now, if you find a shorter route and a smaller line, and you're not in the road,
Really, you knock off 100?
well, I'm not bidding the project, but, you know, that's for the decision makers.
So I think that, I think one of the biggest considerations here for the board is the timing on this, because if you want to make a commitment for the water, we have to make sure that we have the ability and the wherewithal to get it here.
Sure.
So trying to time that to be able to make that commitment and understand what the costs are going to be and be able to make a
Right.
commitment on those costs. But that, to some degree, that's up to the voters, so how does that tie into our ballot cycle and in terms of the commitment and funding?
And just something that I want to tell you, so there's some economy of scale, and I don't know how it's going to be bid out for our side of the project, but we anticipate that we'll have a contractor for the pump house, one for the tank. We anticipate that there's at least 4 roads, so there's 4 other road constructions. So I think there might be some economy of scale where there's some big people that come into town that might start driving that price down because there's so much work. It depends on how it happens, but we have seen some people come in with 175, you know, as a pretty good price. And so my point is that if you became another project in town, albeit your own project, you know, there might be some economy of scale because the people are already here and they're competing for the work.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys,
Thank
that
you
was
so
great.
much.
Appreciate you guys coming in short notice. It's awesome.
Very, very much.
Let's not lose touch.
Sharon by yes?
Oh, no problem.